How's it going? Hey. How's it going? It's awesome to be here, North Carolina A&T. This is my first time in North Carolina. And it's an honor to be here as to kick off the Chancellor's speaker series in Town Hall. It's great to be here with all of you guys. Thank you for having me and for coming out. I'm looking forward to having an awesome conversation. This year, I'm doing this thing. I do a personal challenge every year, and my challenge this year is to get out of my little bubble in San Francisco and get a chance to talk to folks all around the rest of the country. My goal is to have visited every state in the country by the end of the year and talk to people about how they're thinking about their lives, the work they do, their future, their hopes, all that. So I'm going to end up visiting hopefully around 30 states this year. I've been to probably about 20 or a little more than that before this year. And it's been a great opportunity so far to learn about how people are thinking about community and building different communities around the country and around the world. A lot of the work that we do at Facebook is really focused on helping people connect. We're helping people connect with friends, but also hopefully helping to build different communities in the world to create a tighter social fabric and a better functioning world and a fairer world and just kind of help push things forward. So, reading up a little bit about North Carolina A&T, one of the things that's really apparent is that you guys have a lot of strong communities here, right? I mean, there's a strong community around engineering and science. You guys graduate more African American engineers here than almost any other college in the country, and that's awesome. It's a strong community, something to be proud of. Really strong community on social justice, but of course going back to Greensboro 4 and a lot of groups since then. In one of my recent trips, I was down in New Orleans, and I got a chance to stop there around Mardi Gras, and I heard some brass bands, but I heard coming out here that they have nothing on your brass band. So I was told that was a thing. And that there's also this deep sense of pride in this community. Something like an Aggie pride? All right, I appreciate that you humored me on that for what must have been the worst accent that anyone has ever said that in who has stepped foot on this campus. But look, I'm looking forward to having a great conversation, hearing your questions. I like traveling around and talking to folks about community and different things because it's not just an opportunity for me to share what Facebook and what we're doing, but it's an opportunity for me to hear how different folks are thinking about things around the country and around the world, and for me to learn as well. So let's kick it off. I know folks wrote in with a bunch of great questions, and I'm curious to hear what all you guys are thinking about. So thank you.
All right, great, Mark. We'll go ahead and get started. Remember, students, to raise your hands, and we'll take the first question. Right here.
Good morning, Mr. Zuckerberg. My name is Delissa Jordan. I'm a psychology student from Detroit, Michigan. My question to you is, your recent Facebook note that went extremely viral, you declared that you all at Facebook, the most important thing that you all at Facebook could do is develop a social structure to allow the community to develop this global community that works for everyone. My question to you is, do you believe that in order to cultivate and encourage this community, that we must actively identify those that threaten the progress and the plans that we have in place?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So a few weeks ago, I wrote this letter about building global community, right? And one of the reasons why is because I think it's not a secret that we're at a time right now of a lot of division. And a lot of folks are worried about the direction that things are going in. Not just in this country, but around Europe, or around Asia, around the whole world. So I was wrestling with this question and talking to a lot of people at Facebook and outside about what is the role that we can play as a company in trying to help things move forward. And what I did a lot of reading and talked to a lot of folks, and took a step back and realized that if you look at the really broad arc of human history, right? So hundreds and thousands of years, right? Human history is kind of the story of how people have learned to come together in ever larger groups, right? Some from families to tribes to villages to cities to nations, in order to solve problems that we couldn't solve by ourselves, right? And at each step along the way, that didn't automatically happen, right? So we needed to build different things to enable people to come together, right? And there are things like different kinds of communities to form, or media to distribute information so we can all learn about what's going on across the community, or even things like governments at different scales, right? A city government is different from a national government. And these are all things, we don't necessarily think about them as technology or infrastructure, but they are, right? These are tools that we've built as a civilization to make it so that we can get to the next level and solve different problems. And today, I think a lot of the biggest opportunities and problems that we face are not just ones that we can solve on a local level or a national level, but are things that we need to increasingly be able to come together as a world to solve. So, you think about things like global warming, or pandemic disease that starts in one place but can spread to others, or civil war in Syria that creates a refugee crisis across other continents. That's not an issue that is confined to one place. These are global challenges, and the opportunities that we have as well to spread freedom, to end poverty, to grow economic prosperity around the world. And these are also things that are not just constrained to one place. So, I think we're at this unique time in human history that, it's at each step along the way, it's, we've built these greater structures. And it's not like they replaced the ones that were there before. When we built nations, cities didn't go away. Cities got stronger, right? Families have gotten stronger and stronger as time has gone on. But I do think we're at a point in time now where, if you're worried about the direction that things are going in around the world, one of the big things that we can all think about are what are the pieces of infrastructure, like communities and media and governments and just different organizations and nonprofits, that you can be a part of building that help people come together around the world, right? And not just in these smaller communities. And that's a thing that, when I think about Facebook, because we have this community all around the world, it's almost 2 billion people now. We clearly aren't going to solve the problems by ourselves, right? No company can do that, and I wasn't trying to say that we can, but I do believe that we have a responsibility to do our best to help build some of that infrastructure that helps people come together, starting at a local level and building up and building movements and doing good stuff, and eventually making a difference globally. So, yeah, I think we need to, getting back to the question, figure out what are going to be the problems on the way to doing that, and make sure that we systematically go build tools that empower people all around the world to go solve them and organize at a bigger level than has ever been done before. And that's a big theme of how I'm thinking about stuff. So I'm sure a lot of the questions that that you guys asked today will come back to these themes around building community, because I do think that's got to be one of the next big things that we do increasingly around the world over the next 5 to 10 years in order to make progress on a lot of issues.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. We have another question. Great.
Hello, Mrs. Zuckerberg. My name is David Kimber, and I'm a sophomore computer science student from Atlanta. This year, we saw that fake news articles played a pivotal role in the 2016 election in influencing voters. So I ask you today, how do you think fake news affects individual communities within the United States, and what role will Facebook play in eradicating it from our media landscape?
Yeah. All right, let's get right into it. So welcome me to North Carolina A&T. All right, I got one question about kind of big picture. All right, let's look. I think that asking all the hard questions is great. So this is why I go around and talk to folks so we can talk about this stuff. Misinformation is a big issue, right? And it doesn't just affect Facebook. It affects a lot of news sources, and we have a responsibility to help fight against it. And we're doing that by doing things like fighting against hoaxes the way that we would fight against spam, by enabling people to flag stuff that might be incorrect, so that way third-party fact checkers can validate it. We don't want to be in the business of determining what people say is true or not, but we want people to have good information about what's right. So, sending it to third-party fact checkers is good. There are a lot of folks who try to spread misinformation just for financial gain, right? They basically make up some crazy stuff Johnny Depp just died of a heart attack or something like that, come up with the most crazy thing that they can, and in order to get you to click on it, so that way you click on it and they take you to a web page that has all these ads so they can make money from the ads. So, we want to make it so that they can't run Facebook ads there. Maybe they can find some other ads to run, but they're not going to run ours on ad farms like that. So there are a bunch of things that we can do to disrupt the economics, make it so that the content can't get shared. But this is a big issue. Now, one thing that I really want to be really clear on is that we're really against fake news and misinformation. There have been some accusations that say that we actually want this kind of content on our service because it's more content and people click on it, but that's crap, right? I mean, no one in our community wants fake information, right? Everyone wants real information. So if someone clicks on something and they have a bad experience, then they're not going to trust Facebook, and they're not going to want to get more content from Facebook, and that's not good for us, right? So we are really aligned with our community in trying to do what we can to make it so that this content does not spread through the network. Now, part of the issue, though, is that this is a really challenging problem because it's not always clear, what is fake and what isn't, and it's not always a clear line and distinction. There are some things like hoaxes, like what I just said, where people aren't even trying to get it right, and those you can often identify. But a lot of what people are calling fake news are just opinions that people disagree with. And that, I think, we need to be really careful with, because an important part of democracy is people being able to share things that other people are going to disagree with. So we need to make sure that we don't get to a place where we're not showing content or banning things from the service just because it hurts someone's feelings or because someone doesn't agree with it. I think that would actually hurt a lot of progress. So it's a tricky problem. Facebook is committed to doing our part. We feel like we have a big responsibility to help push on it. But I do think that this is a big problem across society, and this is a big issue. I think we are also victims of this. We do not want it on our service, and we need to make sure that we do the best work that we can to eliminate this, because we don't want any of it.
Thank you, Mark. Next question.
Hello, my name is Ayanna Wilson. I'm a sophomore economics student from Salisbury, North Carolina. And my question for you is, what is your greatest accomplishment after the creation of Facebook?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to beat that, but look, I don't know if this is an accomplishment, but the thing that I am most proud of and that brings me the greatest happiness in life is my family, right? And my wife, we've been together since before I started Facebook, so I don't know if that counts as something since Facebook. We have a wonderful daughter. She's 1 year old. And we just announced last week that we're going to have a second daughter. So that's definitely, I mean, for me, that's it. But and having kids, as I think a lot of you will learn, I mean, it does change how you think about the world in a pretty dramatic way. There are all these things that I just hoped that we would eventually get to, right? Like in our family philanthropy, we work a lot on education, and we had this long-term hope of, hopefully we can really improve the education system over the course of our lives. And now it's like, our daughter's going to go to school in 5 years. We better get on this. I mean, this is like a much bigger rush than I'd originally thought it was going to be. And it also, having a family changes the way that you redo your time, right? And think about that. And I make sure. One kind of special thing that I love to do with our daughter is bath time, right? And I mean, she's always just been a water baby. She loves swimming. She loves the water. So I just make sure. I mean, I used to do meetings super late, and now I just make sure that 3 times a week I'm home to give her bath and clean her, and it's a fun thing that we do. Now, that said, and we might be going into too much information land here. She did poop on me in the bath last week. I was giving her a bath, and then I'm like, damn it. And running a company, I do metaphorically get pooped on a lot. But this was the first time that someone had literally pooped on me. And, it's awesome. She's my daughter, so she can get away with that. I asked our, if you don't mind a digression, I asked our pediatrician when I saw her, I'm like, is that normal? It's like, your daughter, she's not supposed to poop in the bath. She's like, yeah, actually a lot of times when 1-year-olds poop in the bath, that's actually the beginning of volitional pooping, which means that not only did she by accident poop on me, she on purpose pooped on me. So, look, family, the greatest source of joy in your life. That's definitely it for me. And hopefully that was not way too much information on what's going on in my household, and hopefully that doesn't embarrass her too much when she grows up.
Oh, well, boys have something in store, Mark, too. It's interesting when you're changing diapers. They do funny things, too. Yeah. Next question. Anybody have a question over here?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to get a boy. Wait, 2 girls. Happy with that.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for being here. My name is Ziddy. I'm a third-year PhD candidate in the Department of Leadership Studies, and I'm originally from Swaziland, but I grew up here in Greensboro. My question is that it's no secret that some of the wealthiest entrepreneurial circles lack diversity. So what do you intend to do about that, and what advice would you give to us as minorities to strategically navigate the entrepreneurial world, so that we can be included?
Yeah. So, I don't think it's a secret that the tech community and industry has an issue with diversity. So, and, frankly, I think that that's our problem to figure out, right? And, so you asked what you can do, and I'll get to that in a second, but I think that responsibility rests on us, right? And the companies in the industry to make sure that we get to that. I mean, there's so much research that shows that you need diverse teams to do the best work. So it's important that we do better on diversity, not only because it's the right thing to do for the country and for people, but because that's the only way that we're going to serve our community the best. So we have to do a better job. And there are a few things that I think that we can do that we've started working on. But I think it's going to take a little while to work this through. But I think that there are a bunch of important things that we need to do. So one is, whenever you have a problem, I'm a big believer in that in running a company, you kind of get what you put in, right? So if you want diversity, then you better have specific teams in your company that are focused on getting diversity, right? And so you can't just expect that you're going to have a normal recruiting team go out and try to get folks, and that you're magically going to solve a diversity problem that we have. So we've had to build specific teams that focus on going and talking to folks and making sure that we map out who the best candidates are from all different kinds of backgrounds, not just in the U.S., around the world. And we do that, and we need to make sure that we train our hiring managers, right? Because they have a lot of different goals and jobs, and they're trying to ship a product, and if you ask different hiring managers across the company, they're all going to say that they want diverse candidates. But then, if they have the choice between, can I get the first person who's good, who could be on my team, and I need to ship this product, or would I rather, put in an extra amount of time to get diversity? A lot of them have different pressures. So we need to make sure that we push really hard and give them the right incentives to make it so that the organization is right long term. The other thing that I'm really focused on is unconscious bias, right? So we do this really rigorous training for every manager at Facebook, where you have to go through and understand what your unconscious biases are, because I think that a lot of people, and the research shows this really clearly, a lot of people who think that they care about diversity actually still have a lot of these biases, right? That hold it back. Now, I was on a different trip when I was traveling in a different state. I stopped by this place, and they had their workforce was 95% men and 5% women, and I asked the guy who was running it, how do you make this a good environment for women, right? If you only have 5% women working here, and he said very definitively, he was like, well, we have no issues with that. And I kind of roll my eyes, and I'm like, that is not a confidence-inspiring answer, right? Because it's often the people who think that they're doing the best who are doing the worst, right? And why I think that these unconscious biases are so pernicious. So we do this. We have a training at Facebook that goes across a lot of different groups of people, and we refresh it and make sure that every manager is continuously doing it. But look, this is something that's very ingrained in our society, and it's going to take a while to fully back this out. But again, I really think the tech industry has a big issue on this. It's holding us back from building the best things that we can, and we have to solve this. So I appreciate the question, but this one's on us. Now, what can you do? We do need more good engineers. Right, so that's no secret. You're doing what you do here. You do the best work that you can in training yourself and getting to be a great engineer, and you will have a good future. Whether it's at a Silicon Valley technology company or another, there's a very clear dynamic in the world right now where there's way more demand for engineers than there are engineers. So if you go just really focus on doing the best work that you can, then there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Thank you, Mark. Another question? We'll come up here front.
How you doing, Mark? My name is Nigel Hammond. I'm an industrial and systems engineering student hailing from Baltimore, Maryland. My question for you today is, how were you able to continue to learn outside of the classroom and develop a technical skill that was barely being taught?
Interesting. So, I think a lot of you guys who are engineers can probably relate to this, that computer science classes are great, and you learn a lot by doing that, but a lot of the best stuff that you're going to do is just hacking around and coding by yourself, right? And we actually see this in our hiring process at Facebook. One of the things that we ask people is, what is something that you've built that's outside of the jobs that you've done, right? Because often that's one of the best ways that people can show passion and leadership is through what they do in their free time, right? Not just the work that you've done at a company or in school, but what did you go take the initiative to go do? So that's always been, I think, a big part of it. I probably learned more coding from just random side projects than the courses that I took in college. And now that's a big part of this personal challenge for me, right? I could spend all my time running Facebook, and that would be good. There are worse things to do than that, and I learn a lot from that. But I want to make sure that I'm a more well-rounded person, and so I try to do different personal challenges every year. So this year, my challenge has been to get out and talk to people around the country. Last year, my challenge was to build this AI system to control my home, and that was a lot of fun, right? And I learned a lot about AI. I learned a lot about home automation, about building certain new types of things that I haven't gotten a chance to code with for a while, because these days I don't get to write too much code. I'm pretty busy running the company, but this was fun because I got a chance to play around with mobile development and different things that I haven't gotten a chance to do for a while. The project turned out well. At the end of the year, I asked Facebook who should be the voice, and everyone. It was pretty uniform. I should have predicted this. Everyone's like, well, you got to get Morgan Freeman to be the voice. Because, of course, he has the best voice, right? That is undisputed. So I called him up, and he was like, yeah, I'll be the voice. Yeah, cool. So that was great. But whether or not you get Morgan Freeman to be the voice of your side project, I do think that just taking on different side projects is a big part of coding and computer science education. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question. Here, we'll stay up front. One more.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Hi, my name is Mitzi Abdulrahman, and I'm a social work major from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I know that Facebook is the most popular platform for friends and family to keep in contact with one another. And that impacts the way we see and learn the world. But I'm wondering if there's another platform that Facebook could introduce that can discuss heavier issues such as Islamophobia to educate society on a broader scale. And my personal opinion, one of the reasons that Islamophobia exists is due to media bias and the lack of positive imagery of Muslims. So my question to you is, Mark, how can Facebook serve as a tool and a platform to help build stronger communities and to remove those roadblocks that we have in the media?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And when we think about what we hope Facebook can help people change in the world, it really is stuff like what you're talking about. I mean, we love the fact that people share photos on a day-to-day basis and all that, but the bigger social debates are really what we kind of have in mind when we think about our mission of giving people a voice and helping people connect around the world. And, you know, one of the things that there's a bunch of research around this that when you want to discuss big issues like this, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that people are connecting, first over shared interests and common humanity, whether that's, you have a shared interest in sports or cooking or a TV show that you watch together, or an interest that you have. And then, you have that debate, or you have that connection. You sit down with a person, you see them, you recognize that they're a person. And then it's much easier to talk about hard topics after that. Even if you disagree, you realize that that person is coming from a perspective that is real, that you share humanity with that person, and you're just much more open-minded to having that discussion. So that's actually one of the things that I'm really proud of that Facebook can do, and that I actually think Facebook can hopefully somewhat uniquely help out in the current media landscape is not just presenting an opinion that's like a point opinion on one thing, right? You read an article, it's about one topic. You don't really get much of a sense of where the author's coming from, or you don't want to just have a debate on that topic with people who may come from a completely opposite perspective. Facebook allows people to connect as people first, and then talk about specific issues on top of that. So, I don't actually think that what you're talking about should be a different platform. I think that when this works well, this should all be integrated into one big set of discussions that people are having. Some fun, some about baby photos or sports photos, or humor, just different things that are going on, and then some serious, right? And if it were all serious, then I think that would be pretty hard to make that work. But if it was all fun and frivolous, then I think that wouldn't be doing its social role. So I think mixing these things together so that way we have those common bonds is the right way to push forward, and that's a big thing that we're pushing on. But this is a big theme in the world right now. We talk about giving everyone a voice and getting a diversity of opinions out there. We also need to make sure that there's enough common ground that we can make progress together, and that is a big theme that we're thinking about today. And I think we have a lot of work ahead of us on that.
Okay, next question. Well, I'm head to the other side of the room here. Here we go. Please stand up.
Hi, Mark. My
Hey.
name is Toby Ayanti. I'm a computer science and electrical engineering graduate, and I also like to give a big thanks for you visiting my home country of Nigeria last year. So my question is, I see you're doing a lot. You said that you're doing a lot of travel this year. I want to ask why you're doing that travel. You explained a bit, but I wanted to ask a bit more and what you've learned visiting all those states. I also wanted to ask, what's your favorite state so far, and why is that obviously North Carolina?
I just got here. I have a feeling that how I'm going to feel about the state is going to depend a lot on how the rest of this Q&A goes. So how about this? I can commit that North Carolina is the best state that I've been to today. No, that's pretty weak. I'll answer that at the end. Look, so the reason why I'm doing this, the travel, is because I'm trying to understand more, how people are thinking about their work and what they want in their lives, and what the challenges and hopes for the future are, right? I think the last year and the last few years have been pretty surprising, right? The direction that the world has gone in for a lot of folks, right? When I got started with Facebook in 2004, the world was getting more connected every year, and the default assumption was that was good and that was going to keep on happening, right? And people just kept on, across the world getting more connected. Countries seemed like they were coming closer together. It seemed like we were getting, more shared values, and that was great. And now, it does seem like there's this rising tide of voices who are against the world coming together in different ways and against globalization. And I think it's important to understand that, because I think a lot of those perspectives, even if I think long term that it's really important that the world comes together more, I think that there are real ways in which a lot of folks have been left behind by the advances of the world coming together. Not everyone has participated in that equally. And the only way to continue building a strong global community that's sustainable is to make sure that it works for everyone. It can't just work for some people, right? You can't have things like trade that help some people but not others. You need to figure out a way to make it so that that actually is benefiting for everyone. And I believe that it can. Right, I do think if you look at the arc of human history, it is this story, like I said earlier, of how people have figured out how to come together in greater numbers to solve problems that we couldn't have solved before. And I think that the continuation of that arc will be people coming together increasingly as a global community made up of all these small local communities and personal freedom that enables us to do all the things that we need to. But I think we're going to come together in a bigger community. But in order to do that, I do think we need to be responsive to the specific challenges that folks have. So, I've been trying to go around and understand both economically and socially what are the challenges, right? And it's just been very interesting. I've gotten a chance to go visit industries that I don't think a lot about, right? So the fishing industry, for example, I met with a bunch of folks who are running shrimping boats and oysters and a bunch of different things. I mean, this isn't a lot of what I spend my time thinking about, running Facebook. But it turns out that there are lots of challenges, right, around the costs of labor, for example, in the U.S. versus other countries that are putting different pressures, and there are lots of entrepreneurs in all these places who are figuring out how to use the internet to kind of upgrade their business model and make it work better. So I mean, in that story that I was just talking about, one family figured out that if they farm oysters instead of going fishing for them, and if they sell them and put them on Instagram instead of trying to sell them to chefs around the world, instead of just kind of trying to sell them locally directly to people, that they do better. So there are ways, I think, to help a lot of these industries and folks move forward. But I mean, you got to start by understanding that. And I think for someone like me who is running a company and is trying to help people around the world build community, I just need to understand more how people are thinking about it. So that's my goal. I'm really glad to be in North Carolina. I think that there's a specific perspective here that I think I will get. And hopefully at the end I will have a more fulfilling answer to your original question around whether this is the best state, because the answer I gave was pretty lame.
Another question here. Okay.
Hi, Mark. My name is Akila Smith. I am a junior criminal justice student from Raleigh, North Carolina. And my question was, starting your journey, what was your motivation? I know you had plenty of obstacles in the road. So I wanted to know what kept you motivated to keep going to where you are now.
So one thing that I always think is super important for, you got to hold that question. One thing that I think is really important for entrepreneurs or really anything is this realization that ideas do not come out fully formed, right? And I think that's a really important thing, because a lot of the media, you watch movies about people who have different ideas, and they always portray it as there's some eureka moment where it's like, oh, now I have this idea, and then the next thing you know, we have this big company, or you're winning a Nobel Prize in math, or whatever it is. And the reality is that that's not how the world works. And I think that's an important thing to understand, because if you think that that's how the world works, then if you personally believe that you haven't had your eureka moment yet, then you're going to believe that you can't actually go build something. But the reality is that that's not actually how things work, right? That's not how anything gets built, right? And the way that things actually work is you dive in, right? And you know that you don't know most of the things that you're going to need to know to figure it out, but you have, but by knowing that you're going to figure it out along the way, or at least that no one else who's doing it knows everything up front either. That at least I think gives you the confidence. It gave me the confidence to know that at least I had a chance to try to go learn this along the way. And I do think that that's an important thing for you guys to think about as you're thinking about what you do, is just don't buy into this myth that you need to have an idea fully formed or something fully formed before you get started. That is dangerous, and it will stop you from getting started. And just diving in and knowing that you're going to learn along the way actually is how things get done in the world. And as long as you keep that in mind, that even to this day, we launch products, they're not perfect the first time. And I just believe, I tell my teams this all the time, look, you have to just ship. Right? We're going to get this better by getting real feedback from real people. We're going to learn more lessons by having it out there. No matter how much time you take to polish this thing or do it internally, it's not going to be perfect before you put it out, so you just got to get started. And I really think that that's true.
Oh, there's still hope. I'm going to go back to my bucket list. Okay, another question here. Naya.
Hi, I'm Naya Brooks. I'm a senior public relations student from Henderson, North Carolina. And my question for you is, being that social media has been used by many groups to mobilize underrepresented people, how do you feel about products such as Facebook Live being used to broadcast interactions between citizens and police officers?
I feel great. I mean, look, we believe a lot in transparency and giving people a voice, right? And if we're not going to give them body cameras, then we'll give everyone a live camera, right? So transparency. I think that this is a lot of what Facebook is about, right? Is putting the power in people's hands and giving everyone a voice to share what's important, right? And there's certainly a lot of injustice, right? That now you talk about it and a lot of people deny it, and you put it on camera and they can't deny it anymore. And I mean, there's something really powerful about that. Now, there are real issues that I think we need to work out with this, right? It's live video has grown to a scale that I think we wouldn't have even imagined when we started it, and not just for people kind of hanging out with their friends, but for really socially important things like what you're talking about. I mean, that I think is, we need to make sure that those cases can work really well, but there are also unique challenges that we I think didn't foresee up front, right? I think going back to the last question about how you can't know everything up front, there are certainly challenges that we need to work through on this. So, for example, for different examples around people showing something bad that's happening in the world, there are also people who use live as a tool for broadcasting bad things that they're doing. So there are examples of people committing crimes and live streaming that and getting to large scale, and that is something that I don't feel good about, right? And that I think we have a responsibility to not allow. It's not allowed in the terms of the community standards for our community, because there are certain things. If someone broadcasts themselves committing a crime and gets a lot of people watching that, we don't want that to be an example that other people then go see and say, hey, maybe I can go get a lot of people to watch me too if I go steal a car and make a live video of myself doing it, right? There are examples that are really sad around. I mean, there was a girl a few weeks ago who live streamed committing suicide, and I knew it was, and it's terrible, right? So one of the questions that we were struggling with after this is, we have all these tools on Facebook, to make it so if you see someone who needs help, you can reach out to them and give them help, or you can call 911 or reach out to community hotlines to get them the support they needed. So one of the big reflections, I spent a lot of time with our management team after that, just wondering, asking this question of, why didn't anyone who was seeing this say something, right? And I think that's like, these are, saying that there are big opportunities to do better here, right? I think that what I take away from that is that we as Facebook need to do better at when people are watching this, that we know that people have the tools to, flag if something dangerous is going on, so that way we can get the person help, or if it's something that really is not socially good to be spreading. If it goes against the community standards, then we don't want it to get to millions of people to see it and have that be an example. But for the examples that you're talking about around just showing more transparency for important social justice issues, this is a lot of why we work so hard to give people a voice, is so that important issues like that can be brought to light.
Thank you, Mark. Other questions? Let's go. Oh, come on down here. Excuse me. Get on the side of the room.
Hi, my name is Ryan Godwin. I'm a junior psychology student from Cleveland, Ohio. And my question for you was, what do you personally do to ensure that your company maintains a free and safe environment for the expression of all thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one. I think my framework for this, if you want to create a well-informed community, I think there are two things that you need. One is a diversity of viewpoints, which you can achieve by giving everyone a voice and getting the viewpoints out there. And the other is enough common ground in the views that people have that you can make progress together, right? So if people just have different if our shared view of reality fragments so much that we don't kind of share any common views on how to get things done together, then we're going to have a hard time making progress as a society. So we think about both of those issues. And there have been a lot of issues around misinformation in the last year. So people talk about fake news, but I think that there's actually more beyond that. I also worry about sensationalism and polarization. Right, so it's one thing if news is fake, but I think an issue that's almost just as big is when news outlets take real facts, but they cherry pick them to construct a narrative which is clearly very one-sided. Right, and I think we see that on all sides of the spectrum, and not just in politics. Right, I mean that's happening in discussions about business, around sports, around any different kind of area where you could have that debate. I think we're seeing that kind of polarization. So the question is, how do you resolve this? And there are folks who say, hey, you should just not allow some of this stuff. And our approach has always been much more focused on how can you combat misinformation by allowing a greater diversity of opinions rather than less. So, I talked about things like people can flag something if they think it's incorrect, so that way we can have a third-party fact checker weigh in. But again, it's not saying, hey, you can't share this thing if you believe it or if you think it's funny or you think it's good, but a person who's reading it may also benefit from knowing that in addition to the fact that you wanted to share this piece, this respected third-party fact checker disputes the fact that it's true. Right. So, but I think that that's always the approach that you want to take. And we've been the subject of a bunch of controversy on some issues. I mean, we have a board member who is an advisor to the Trump administration, Peter Thiel. And I personally believe that if you want to have a company that is committed to diversity, you need to be committed to all kinds of diversity, including ideological diversity, right? So I think that folks who are saying that we shouldn't have someone on our board because they're a Republican, I think that's crazy, right? I think you need to have all these different kinds of diversity if you want to make progress together as a society. But I do believe that the answer is getting different views out there and increasingly giving people a voice. So that way you can get more different opinions out there, and also building tools so that we can bring people together and have enough common ground to move forward on that together.
Great, thank you. Next one.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
My name is Jalen Niles. I'm a high school senior at the STEM Early College here, and I'm originally from Maryland, and now I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. My question is that I've seen not only with Facebook, but other social media platforms played a big role here in the past election cycle. So I wanted to know how do you think Facebook will play a role not only in the government, like big government election cycles, but also in state and local election cycles that are not, information isn't as given as much or sought out as much for?
Yeah, I think that that's a key point. And one of the big things that we care about is increasing civic engagement. Right? Not enough people vote. I think it's actually crazy. I mean, around the world, more people tend to vote in other countries than vote in the U.S. In free countries. But in the U.S., in a lot of elections, half of people who are eligible to vote. It's a crazy thing, right? To have that freedom and that right and to not take it. So that is a big thing that we've focused on. And in the last election, we helped more than 2 million people register to vote, and then we ran another campaign to help more than 2 million people actually go vote in the election. So there's a lot more to do there, both in the U.S. and around the world. But like you say, one of the big opportunities is not just the big national elections. I mean, people hear a lot about presidential elections, for example, but a lot of policy in the country, a lot of the stuff that's actually going to affect us most happens at a local level, right? It's city council and board of education, and that's actually affecting how our kids are going to grow up and the neighborhoods that we live in, and how we think about all these different things, state level, and those tend to get much less attention. So two of the big opportunities that I think we have a responsibility to help work on is making sure that social media overall is a good environment for people to share and connect with all kinds of local officials, and also that we help people connect not just around elections, that in this country, not only going to the ballot box every 4 years, but actually staying engaged on civic issues. So one of the big things that we're doing is we're really focused on helping people connect to candidates and local officials. The day after the election last year, we sent everyone out this notification that said, hey, here are all your new elected officials, right? All the way from the top down to your city council or whoever else was elected, and gave you one button where you can now follow all of them. And overnight, we doubled the amount of connections that people had in the US to elected officials. So now in your newsfeed, you're not just going to hear about the national debates, but you're also going to see stuff from your local representatives. And the thing is, if you comment on a US senator or president's post, they may not see that. But if you comment on your city council member's post, they're going to see that, right? And they're going to respond. And that actually has a bigger way to impact policy, I think. So we see these examples not just in the US, all around the world. I mean, in the messaging platforms that we run, WhatsApp, there are examples in Europe and across Africa where you have whole towns are in a WhatsApp thread and are basically telling the elected officials what they need and what's going on, and that's how the elected officials stay plugged in. So I think that there's a big opportunity to help keep people engaged between the elections and making sure that people have the information that they need for all elections. But I would definitely, I really agree with your point. I would encourage everyone here to stay focused on not just the big ticket ones, but all of them, because that really makes a big difference.
Yeah, I just got on Facebook last October. Now you're talking about WhatsApp. What's up? What was that?
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
WhatsApp. It's a big messaging service.
I'm just catching up.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll show you how to use it after this.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks. Next question. Come on. And you go, Brianna.
Good evening. My name is Brianna Mack, and I am a first-year graduate student in the clinical mental health counseling field. And my question for you is, when speaking on the topic of leadership, what is one misconception that you have found this generation to have, and what are you personally doing to change or influence that misconception?
So the biggest one I talked about before, which is this idea that ideas come out fully formed. I do think, I really think this applies to everything that you guys will do. It's, I just think that that's a dangerous idea. And I think believing that you can just dive in and that you don't need to know everything up front is really important. But because you asked another question, let me think of number two, I think would be, I think getting really good people around you is really important. And, it's this kind of thing that, I don't know, that's kind of trite to say, right? That doesn't sound like a misconception when I say it, but the extent to which you believe it, I think is really important, right? There are a lot of things that people say about hiring that I feel like they don't actually live out in practice. So, we were talking a bit earlier about diversity. A lot of people pay lip service to it, but I think you actually need to work on it. No one, hardly anyone is going to say that hiring diversity is going to be bad, or isn't going to say that they don't want it. But then you actually need to go do it. I think in terms of hiring the best people, it is similar in that everyone says they want to hire the best people, but then there's so much pressure to actually, hey, I have like 3 things that I need to get done. I really need someone, and this person seems pretty good. Maybe I'll just go hire them. So I have this rule for the people who I work with, which is that I will not hire anyone to work directly for me unless I would work for them myself. And it's not that I'm hiring them to run Facebook. It's just that in an alternate universe, if I hadn't started Facebook and I were out looking for a job, would I respect this person enough to go work for them? And when I go look at our core team of people, folks like Sheryl Sandberg, and all the folks who lead product development at the company, the answer is clearly yes. Right? I would absolutely go work for them if the tables were turned and I was in a different situation. And I think that that's a great way to think about what you guys do. I mean, you're going to have to work with other people, right? You want to make sure that that the people who you have on your teams and that are around you, whether they're on your team or they're working for you, are people who you would feel comfortable working for. And if the people around you don't pass that simple test, or if you're going to be hired onto a team and there are 3 other people, and the other 3 people on the team aren't people who you would be comfortable working for because you feel like you would learn from them, then I don't know. I'd think about finding a different team to join, right? If you can. And so I think that is a good test that has always served me well. And in just knowing exactly what I mean when I say I want good people on the team, it's really that.
Great answer. Great. Jordan. So Mark, Jordan is our Student Government Association president.
Awesome.
So we definitely
Good afternoon, Mrs. Zuckerberg. My name is Jordan Green. I'm a senior accounting student from Raleigh, North Carolina. I humbly serve as the SGA president. We are currently witnessing multiple incidents of injustice and constantly debate the topic of HBCUs being relevant to today's society. What role is Facebook playing in social activism and the role of equality of HBCUs in general?
So the big thing that I think we need to do, we're very committed to giving everyone a voice, right, and being a platform for civic engagement. And the thing that we need to do is make sure that we're giving everyone around the world, including right here, the tools they need to push for the change that they want to see. So I mean, I'd almost put the question back to you and ask, are there things that you need in the push and the activism that you're doing personally that we need to be doing better? Right? And I don't mean to put you on the spot and ask for that feedback right now, but if you have it now, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, we can talk afterwards. But I mean, that is our job, right? It's not necessarily to go into a community and necessarily always be the activists for folks there, but to empower folks and give everyone the tools that they need to do that. Great. If you have thoughts that you want to share, go for it.
A lot of thoughts. We'll talk after.
All right.
Okay, another question. Let's see. How about here up front, Mark?
How you doing? My name is Tolly McMillan. I'm a sophomore political science student from the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Next governor. But my question to you, I want to thank you for coming here. My question for you, do you think a bachelor's degree with your experience with college and everything, do you think a bachelor's degree is a necessary key to attaining success?
Ooh, I am not your role model on this one. Yeah, absolutely. Stay in school. Look. Be real. I think it helps. I loved the time that I spent in college. I wish I could have gotten more time. I did not choose to leave. I just happened to build Facebook, and it kind of made me leave. But if I had the opportunity to learn for 2 more years in college, college is this magical time, right, where you get to explore different interests and focus on different things and meet great people. And that is not something that I would have wanted to have given up. And if I could have magically if I could have done Facebook in my senior year, I would have done that. Or after I left, I would have done that, and I wish I could have stayed in college. But and of course, there's no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of research that shows that having a bachelor degree absolutely does help increase your job potential, your earnings potential, all that. So yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of crazy for I'm not necessarily the best spokesperson for this message, but like, unless there's a really, really good reason to leave college, you really should finish college. And even me, I'm going back to college to get. I'm going to get a degree this year. Harvard finally allowed me to come back, and I have to say, I think that this is probably going to be the thing that my parents are most proud of me for. So look, yes, I'm not the right messenger, but stay in school.
Okay, Mark, we'll take a last question here. Kristen. Hey, Kristen.
Hello. My name is Kristen Shipley, and I'm a junior public relations student from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm also a former Facebook intern. And my question for you is, we've talked a lot about different social issues, social justice, and we kind of see at least as millennials, I think we see our government sort of as working under this antiquated system, and with an infusion of technology and like with your expertise, do you have any plans or intentions of running for president, possibly with other innovators such as Kanye West, who's expressed interest in running as well, but do you have political aspirations?
All right, well, let me take the second question first, which is I don't think that Kanye is going to be at the bottom of anyone's ticket. But to the bigger question, no. I mean, look, one of the things that I think is kind of is a little funny is, all right, so I'm doing these trips to go around and meet folks, and a lot of folks are like, oh, he's trying to meet people. He must immediately be trying to run for office. And it's like, what? Like the rest of what I do isn't important or relevant? Like it's like there's no reason for me to actually understand people. It's like we're building a community here. It's not that small, it's good. No, I mean, look, I think that that we each play our role, right? And one of the things that I think needs to get done is there needs to be certain technology and tools that empower people to build the communities locally and around the world, to build a tighter social fabric, so that way we all have this broader shared platform as a society to make progress in all the things that we care about, right? And I think each person should do the things that they're best suited to do. And for me, running Facebook is a really big responsibility and an opportunity to make an impact on a lot of the things that I know we all care about. But it's certainly been a blessing in my life, and I think a huge responsibility that I have to make the biggest change that I can with that. And that's what I'm focused on, as well as the philanthropy that I do with my family to make sure that with all the luck that we've had, that we do our best to give back to folks all around the world to help build communities and make sure that everyone has the opportunities that I've had. So thank you. And thank you guys all for coming out today. I think this is a pretty good Q&A. You guys asked some pretty hard questions. So I appreciate that. That's what this is about. And I'm looking forward to getting to follow up and hear from more of you guys over the coming days. So thank you. All right.